How does a high school kid with his dad's old Canon camera become one of the most trusted business voices for photographers? Meet Paul Weaver and the playbook every creative should be stealing to grow a business. Paul wasn't the art kid. He was a baseball guy who happened to fall in love with the camera, but he notices something nobody else does. Creatives aren't failing because they lack talent. They're failing because they lack business systems. Fast forward and he creates a business teaching the 6 pillars every freelancer needs. And the killer move, the golden nugget strategy. Stand out instantly. It's how he landed Pepsi and how he landed retainers worth real money. Paul's story is simple. Creativity gets you noticed, business gets you paid, and the moment you learn both, you stop surviving as a freelancer and you start building a career. This is Anatomy of a Brand, where every week I talk with people shaping culture, founders, marketers, entrepreneurs, and creatives. And if you're one of those, subscribe to never miss a conversation. This is episode 21 with the Freelance Photographer founder, Paul Weaver. Paul, man, thank you for taking the time with us. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, man. This is exciting.
Yeah, bro. You've built something incredible, and that's impacted even some of our team. They've followed you along your journey, and some of the tools you've taught in your freelance photographer stuff has really impacted a lot of us. So we're excited to dive into this. But what I want to jump right into with you, Paul, is where did you start? So obviously you have a business you've built and that was recently acquired, but you started somewhere in the photography industry. Where did you start?
Yeah. It's so funny because I live in Miami right now, but I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay.
And if I look back at even like high school, I was like the jock, the sports guy, but then I was very creative.
Okay.
So it was this weird balance between like, I wanted to be in the MLB someday, but also I knew that I wanted to run a creative business. So how I got started was I picked up my dad's Canon T2i camera back in my junior year of high school.
Wow.
And started dabbling with it just with like the local music scene, going to concerts, shooting with friends during like lunch period. And I just realized, wow, people like the portraits I'm taking. So my start
That's
was
awesome.
really, using my dad's camera back in high school, shooting portraits. And then that kind of brought me into the music industry, which was really like the first time I actually got paid for my work.
Oh, wow. And so that journey, I resonate with that because in high school, my dad got me a stolen copy of Photoshop, and I started designing in high school with my first in design tech class and all of that in high school. So I resonate with starting in high school. But from there, did you stick with it for, like, what, did it come back to you? Did it stay with you? Were you always in the photography industry from that point on?
Yeah. So I think at that point I knew I got to go to a 4-year college and figure that out. Because that's what you do, at least in my family. It's like, you go to college, get that done. But it was cool because at the same time, I was getting paid for senior photos. I was shooting weddings, which is how a lot of freelancers get their start in the industry. The curveball that my parents really didn't like was not only was I going to concerts, but I was actively trying to pitch to musicians and labels.
Okay.
Because my dream at that time was to go on tour. And before I knew it, I went to college freshman year and got hit up by independent artists and was able to go on kind of a Midwest sprint of a U.S. tour. And it was with Macklemore and Ryan Lewis.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which was crazy.
Which one hit you up? Were they the guys that hit you up?
It was actually this guy named XP that grew up with Macklemore and was kind of integrated in a lot of their tour planning.
Okay.
And they'd seen my portfolio and I'm like, let's make it happen.
So your first tour, let me just make sure I'm saying this correctly. The first tour you did photography on was a Macklemore tour with Ryan Lewis.
Yeah.
Not a bad first start.
So I shot a few of their shows in the Midwest. And from there, I worked with this R&B artist named Somo. I went on tour with Kevin Garrett and then did a lot of one-off shoots with like many different talented musicians. But yeah, that was like a big moment for me because I would get the checks sent to my parents' house because that's where I was living.
Yeah.
And they would open up the mail and they're like, wait, you're actually like getting paid for this? So that was kind of like the light bulb moment that I was onto something. I was able to say, hey, I can make money with my camera. At that time, I was also learning how to shoot video, which I saw as a need for most clients, just not only in the music space, but outside of the music space. So that's really how I learned settings, ISO, shutter speed, aperture, how to shoot in low light. And it really propelled me when I then wanted to take the leap and start working commercially with
Okay.
brands.
And so the freelance route, did that stay long, or did you start to establish something else that people were hiring, or were they hiring Paul Weaver and just hiring you directly, or did you at some point in that journey make a pivot outside of just going by freelance, or how was that journey?
Yeah, always freelance. I took a year to work at an agency in Minneapolis. I shot all the content for Once Upon a Child and Plato's Closet. They're like secondhand use clothing stores. And that kind of taught me a lot around how to manage and how to shoot on multi-six-figure budgets.
Mm-hmm.
But after a year at that agency, I realized, man, I want to break out and like kind of just test things out, be the jack of all trades for a season.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I then, ever since, have been full-time freelancing.
And so then you went from full-time freelancing, though, you started to identify something in the market that didn't exist based off of something. What was that thing that you started to identify in the market that didn't exist that led you to starting a different kind of business?
Yeah. First year I went all in on my freelance business, shooting photo and video for brands. It's funny because that was like my season where I would jump from like doing a fitness shoot to shooting food, to shooting a kid's birthday party, to shooting a wedding. And my portfolio was all over the place, but my bank account was a number that I've never seen before.
Wow.
So that was like the first year where I'm like, I'm burnt out. I made a lot of money and now I got to niche down. But in that journey, I realized that I'm really good at the business side. And I found that most freelance photographers that I was rubbing shoulders with were very creative and not business minded.
Yes.
So I saw this gap in the market where it's like, not only do I love working with brands and being the freelancer, but also people want to pick my brain over coffee, but I can't share everything over a cup of coffee because it's more than just a 30-minute powwow over, espresso or something.
Yeah. So you started to identify you're getting reached out to. So you're like, all right, I'm crushing this freelancing business. And in that freelancing business, is that when you were working with Lululemon, Garmin, and Olipop, or did that come later?
That came later.
Okay. So those brands came later. Go ahead.
Yeah. A mentor of mine in Los Angeles was like, dude, you're not moving anywhere outside of Minnesota until you put Minnesota on the map as a photographer. And I'm like, all right, let's go. But I started working with a lot of small to mid-sized businesses.
Okay.
Which it's interesting because when I first picked up a camera, I wanted to work with the big national brands that we all know and love. But now that I know, a decade into this, those companies are typically hiring agencies that hire freelancers.
Correct.
So in order for me to even get noticed, I need to build a book of work and get paid working with small to mid-size. So yeah, I didn't really work with any big brands. Maybe there was a few. I worked with Hilton early on. I landed Pepsi. But like the majority of my clients on paper looked very, very small.
So, okay, we're going to get into a little bit of the market you saw and how you started to solve a problem there. But I want to kind of double tap into something you just said about that agencies, these big brands don't usually hire a freelancer, they hire an agency. Is that still the case? Is that still what you're seeing? Or are you seeing it change and they're going directly to these individuals now? Or is it still very much that?
Yeah, I think the national brands that I'm talking about, they have a more developed voice with the content. And they either have an in-house marketing team or in-house content team, or they're working with a big agency that, you might be familiar with. And those agencies are the ones that are going out and hiring photographers, videographers, and support. So that's, I felt like that came maybe like 5 years into my business.
Okay.
Going full-time freelance. And I really think those agencies started taking me a little bit more serious because of my book of work, because of my portfolio.
Love it. So, okay. So I want to hear how you scaled from individual freelancer who's carrying the camera, doing the work to then actually, did you ever build an agency or was it still freelance mostly? And then you built a business around helping freelancers?
Mostly freelancing.
Okay.
I will say there's different seasons though. It went from Paul the freelancer that shoots photo to Paul the freelancer that shoots photo and video to now producer Paul, where I'm kind of building my freelance business as like a self-agency.
Okay.
Because I want to make sure that I'm able to maintain the client experience, the quality, all that. And there's people way better than me. So in order to continue to grow and nurture those relationships and be relevant, I've kind of worn this new position of like, I love producing. I love the business side, and I'll shoot some projects, but I'll produce others.
Okay. And so walk me through how you started your business. Like you have a business that serves photographers and videographers. What was the problem you were seeing, and versus like what you weren't teaching them how to take better photos, or were you? Like, I might have it misunderstood, but you were teaching them a little bit more than that. Not that that's bad.
Yeah. So there's kind of these two buckets here. I think people hire people. So when I created my own freelance photography business, I'm like, it's going to be me. Like, I'm not going to be Shutter Studios or Cold Winter Studios. I'm going to be Paul. So paulwashere.com is my website. But the year that I felt like I made the most money and that I was posting the most, and I kind of broke into like freelance, and that was my big year in Minnesota, an individual came to me and was like, have you thought about education? And to be honest, at first I'm like, I hate school. I'm like, I have no interest at all. And he's like, his name's Cole. He's like, what if I helped you with my background and we built like a course for your work? And this was back in like 2018.
Okay. Wow.
And that's when the Freelance Photographer was born.
Okay.
And it started as these little cute in-person workshops in Minneapolis at coffee shops where I taught people like the technical side of how to turn on their camera.
Okay.
Didn't like that. I then kind of tested the waters and like how to increase your pricing, how to pitch better, how to nurture relationships, and how to work with brands on retainer. And that's when the internet and social media was like, whoa, we want more of that. So that's when I launched the Freelance Photographer course in 2019.
Okay.
And that's when that brand was kind of born.
And that brand serves those pillars. Like you were no longer teaching people, here's how your camera works.
Yeah.
You were teaching them, here's how to build a business. You happen to be a photographer, but here's how you build a business. And you start to help them build their own personal kind of business from that. What are those 6 pillars again? You kind of loosely mentioned them.
Yeah. So the pillars are positioning, portfolio, which is really marketing, pitching, pricing, production. So like all things pre-production, day of production, and post-production. And then the last P is partner, which is client experience. Okay.
Can we dive into each one? Can you unpack each
that.
one? Yeah, let's unpack each one a little bit more. So a person, whether they're a freelance photographer or even if they're trying to work with brands, understanding this, and then even for creatives in general to understand this process and up their ability to navigate this market, and watching how a business was born, essentially, how you even built this. So let's walk through each one of these.
Yeah. And I'll tee it off with saying, as I'm going through these 6 Ps or 6 pillars, I run this coaching business and I practice what I preach with Paul, like the paulwashere.com brand. So it's funny because I really built this around how I've been able to grow my own business.
Yeah.
So with the first P, which is positioning, it's niching down. Brands right now, they're looking for specialists. I do not think that you can get away with building or scaling a business if you're just a generalist. And I tell people that try to challenge me, I'm like, all right, let's say you're training for a marathon and you need some running shoes. Would you go to the grocery store and buy running shoes from aisle 4? Probably not.
Probably not.
You'd probably go to the running store that has the Bandit logo in the window with your favorite runner on the window banner. Yeah. So positioning is really, how do you differentiate yourself in the market? That's not new conversation. Right. But with photographers, it's hard when you come from the portrait and wedding world and you jump into now having conversations with brand decision makers. You got to be more specific.
So in the niching down and positioning part here, you hear it, like you said, it's not new language. I think there's 2 main concerns. I'd love to hear how you navigate those concerns when they come up in your course. One, niching down is going to impact my financials. Do I not take the work that's not in my niche? And then the other one, if you're trying to build a business and you're niching down, is it based off of what? Like, what is the criteria for yourself to niche down with? Like, how do you define that?
Totally. I'll first by saying that there's two different ways I feel like you can define a niche. It's either like industry / genre, or it's your style.
Okay.
Joe Greer, for example, his style is recognizable. Let's go. Like, people know it's Joe Greer. But for me, I picked a category. I picked health and wellness.
Okay.
So I think you got to pick one or the other or both in order to become a little bit more specialized. And then also, I still take on work outside my niche if the budgets are right. But I want to have leverage with pricing. And I found that the more specialized I got and the more I niched down, the less price shopping happened with clients that were coming to me. So I had more leverage, and I almost was able to build this voice in this industry.
So I'm going to go in a little bit deeper on this, because I think this is one that people know, but they still get hung up on. Like, how does this actually work? So when you're saying style or industry makes sense, right? Like, you're picking hospitality, or in some industries are much more lucrative than other industries. So there's some that have, like, people who traditionally pick nonprofits. I'm like, it's going to be tough. Or people who pick health and wellness like you did, is very competitive, like very competitive. But then you say there's a style element that you say that is also a niche. How do you explain the style one a little bit more? What's the elements of that you would unpack?
Yeah, I think that one's harder and more difficult to achieve. Matter of fact, I think that one comes more with just years and years and years and years of experience.
Okay.
I think when I came up on, like, let's just say I'm 13 years in. When I came up on year like 8 or 7 of my business, I started talking with reps and agents in Toronto and LA and in New York. And I was looking at their book of photographers that they were representing. And the majority of them each of them had individual looks or styles to the way they color graded, the way that they shot. One individual was really good at shooting more intimate, lo-fi, like holiday content, where the other was all about capturing motion, where this other individual was really good at capturing low light film photos. So I think it's almost like famous painters and artists when you're walking through a museum and you see a piece of work on the wall and you're like, I know who that artist is, right?
Yep.
It might be an exhibit on one specific topic, but if you know art, you're able to call out, like, I know who that is. I know who painted that. And I think it's the same way with photography and just videography is more and more I'm able to recognize people's, like, editing styles and the way that they capture content.
Makes sense. And so when we translate this first pillar outside of the photography industry, it's recognizing, like, hey, do you serve a specific industry? And in that industry, do you have something about you that is distinguishable? Something about you that, whether it may not be your style per se in that industry, but it's that distinguishing point of view that you have that's different than anybody else in your industry, but is uniquely you, but you're doing it in that industry. That makes a lot of sense. So portfolio was the next one you said. Let's dive into that. What you said is marketing. Is that what, right? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, really, it's marketing. It's your visual resume.
Okay.
I've seen so many photographers that, are very, very successful. And you translate that typically with, like, okay, years of experience, but really it's their body of work. And when it comes to being a photographer, you're not only selling visuals, you're also selling your personality, your strategy, your experience. But when it comes to portfolio, the number one thing that I really like to nail down is, like, what does a solid portfolio look like for the type of brands that you want to attract? So that's why niching down is helpful, because then you become a little bit more clear on, like, the type of content that should be curated on your website. But I think portfolio is probably the most obvious one, where it's like, you got to update your website. It can't be under construction. And no longer is it just like paulwashere.com. It's also your Instagram. It's your LinkedIn. I like Behance. I know a lot of art directors are looking on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to build a body of work that speaks to the type of brands you want to attract or the people that you want to work with.
And so in the portfolio building stage of a portfolio building pillar, you want these photographers to kind of get out of what mindset? Is there a mindset that they're in that they are not doing this? Because that feels like one of the, like, yeah, man, I need a portfolio, but like, like, is there a mindset that they have that they're like, I don't want to show my work? Or is there something that makes it difficult for them to do this?
this is where these pillars bleed into each other. If you're niche down, you have a pretty good pulse on that market.
Okay.
And what those type of brands are investing into asset wise. So when it comes to your portfolio, you might need to break up with content that you really like, but the industry is looking for. And that's a really weird relationship, because you might need to break up with that portrait from your past life in order to speak to that type of brand that you really want to continue working with.
Yeah. And I think that's super difficult for even from creatives to businesses, where they're like, this is what we've done before, but we know that the market's changing and I want to be in that market. We actually did a rebrand for somebody who had to readjust how they showed up because the work they were trying to get wasn't what they were getting, and they had to change. And so you're saying, but I think there is for creatives this romantic notion of like, I love just showing my creativity across the board, and they're wondering why no one's picking them. Is that a real thing?
Yeah. I think that's where the industry needs more transparency. We need to be direct. And that's where like portfolio reviews come in. That's when like show and tell with a successful photographer comes in. Because otherwise you might be running in your commercial photography lane, but surrounded with a bunch of like wedding photographers. They don't know what a good commercial photography portfolio looks like.
Yeah.
Because they know how to speak to a bride and groom and wedding planner. So it's this weird relationship around too. You got to surround yourself with like-minded people, but also people that are just going to tell you how it is.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. So then the next one is pitching, which I think is a fantastic skill to learn.
Yeah.
So go ahead, tell me more about it.
It's this whole proactive versus reactive. You got to have a strategy for going out and actively pursuing new clients. I think if I look back when I first started, SEO was a little bit more strong at that point when it came to like, you post work and you're going to get hits on your site, where there's a lot of noise with that now. So my advice to people is, if you're just waiting for clients to land in your lap, you're going to fail. If you are actively working with clients, but you're still proactively pitching to clients within your niche or industry that you can provide value to, then you're going to find yourself, having a sustainable business. So really, when I think of pitching, I think of proactive approaches. We coach on this approach called the Golden Nugget strategy, which is like an elevated spec sheet strategy. It's how I landed PepsiCo.
Okay.
Was at the grocery store, senior of college. And I'm like, all right, you got LaCroix water and you got all these other brands underneath. Who the heck are these other brands?
Yeah.
And I would look at like the back of the product. I would look at the Instagram and website and do a quick audit on their website, their Instagram. I would Google what their revenue numbers were from the previous year. And what I realized were the CPG space is highly lucrative if you know how to, I guess, research and audit and strategically pitch to brands. So there's this one brand on the shelf called Vita Ice. And I'm like, what the heck? They're trying to be like LaCroix, but their content sucks. So I bought probably like $30 worth of Vita Ice from the shelves. I concepted a shoot, I put together a mood board, I did the shot list, hired some friends, bought some props, really shot this like full-on summer campaign without them even knowing.
Yeah.
And then rather than like posting it on YouTube with the whole title that says I shot a campaign, spec work, I showed up in their inbox on a Tuesday and I'm like, hey, decision maker. I found their email off of LinkedIn. I'm like, I just shot this campaign for Vita Ice and I would love to hop on a call. Here's a Calendly link for us to chat. That's where the Golden Nugget strategy was born, because that client that I invested my own money into, or that brand, turned into them hiring me for another shoot.
Wow.
Me pitching them on retainer for 12-month retainer.
Wow.
And then them giving me 4 other brands underneath their beverage company umbrella, because that's what a lot of food and bev groups have, is brands underneath. And I was making 6 figures a year.
Wow.
Shooting for those 4 beverage brands. And I was like, what if I can put this into like a curriculum that's easy to understand and is like a rinse and repeat process? So that's the Golden Nugget strategy.
Which, if you could break it down simply again, just we can get a summary of the golden nugget strategy.
The golden nugget, elevated spec shoot strategy, where you're proactively pitching a brand with their product or service in it without them even knowing.
Love it.
And then the other is the portfolio sprint, which is really, there's so many photographers that are just sitting on an incredible body of work, but they're not using it to pitch to the right clients. In that you can't just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, help me come up with a direct message to send to this brand. You got to show up, stand out, look different. So we have a lot of different ways to reach out with your portfolio first in order to speak to a brand decision maker that's within your niche. So that's called the portfolio sprint approach.
Okay. And so then that's pitching and then pricing.
So
tell me what that pillar is.
Yeah. Coming from the wedding space, you have package A, B, and C. It's like gold, bronze, onyx, if you want to get sexy with it.
And they're always like, they're going to pick the middle one.
It's crazy. I mean, that's Starbucks' fault. Dude, value-based pricing. Like,
unpack
that's a huge mindset shift when it comes to working as a commercial photographer, videographer, working with brands. If you have a bad relationship with money growing up, a personal relationship is not healthy, then that's going to bleed into your business. So really, I love doing this tear down, build up with photographers and videographers where it's like, let's first have a mindset shift around money.
Okay.
And then also, you're crazy talented. There's a lot of value in what you do. If you charge hourly, you're leaving money out on the table. And I think value-based pricing is really, you're pricing based on not only the deliverables and the scope, the number of hours, but you're also pricing based on the demand for your work, your experience, and then also whatever the heck you want to charge. So I think freelancers have kind of fallen into this trap where they're like, I'm scared to charge this because, you know, hourly, that's a lot of money. Where it's like, dude, you're not charging for usage and licensing. You're not charging for the fact that you've been doing this for 6 years and you're booked and busy. So that's really what pricing is when it comes to the TFP. And that's probably the most difficult one for people.
Yeah, I bet that. Okay. So so we're going to go through the rest of these. I want to ask one more question on pricing, and then we'll go through the last ones quicker. And then I want to ask you a bit about building this business and how this business started to scale. So the pricing thing, we had a conversation as a team even recently, as recent as this morning, where we were talking about the idea of so many creatives are stuck in this spot where they're hand to mouth. So pricing becomes this issue where they kind of are held at arm's distance from these potential clients as they're trying to figure out pricing. And you're going like, I really need this work, but I would call the level of disrespect you're experiencing where they're not talking to you, they're not giving you answers, and you're like in a holding pattern. And so you're just kind of waiting. And so then creatives give in and they're like, well, I can still do it. Yeah, totally. I'm here. And they live in this like almost like scarcity perspective that leaves them going hand to mouth. And then they're stuck when this client is waiting, and they're holding and going, I'm still here. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And you're like, wait, if we were doing any other service, like building a home, for example, if we were building a home, we would be able to tell them we can't actually do the due date anymore because we can't get the lumber in time. We've waited to make a decision on appliances, so those take a month to get ordered and installed, so we're delayed. But they don't treat themselves with that kind of thing. They wrestle, and so they get mishandled all the time, and then they give in. Have you navigated that with some of the people in your program, and have you helped them?
Oh, 100%. I think people will always complain that they don't like the clients that they're currently working with. And then I ask them, hey, you might need to break up with your current pricing and increase your pricing, and you're going to lose those clients. But guess what? There are going to be clients that are willing to pay you for the value that you offer. And I think that's like a mindset that takes a little bit of time for people to get into because of that scarcity mindset. I went through it.
We all did.
Yeah. I used to do shoots for gift cards in high school, man. I'm like, yo, just pay me with a Starbucks gift card.
It's like, yeah, I can do it for you still. Yeah, I could do it. And they just live in the spot where you no longer are perceived as valuable and specialized when you're available to do whatever they say, however they say it. It just doesn't work. All right. So hit me with production and partnering.
Production. It's pretty simple. It's it all comes together at the end here, but it's like most people don't have a pre-production, day of production, or post-production process. And what I mean by that is onboarding, client onboarding, from inquiry all the way to contract to, you know, production meetings. What are those? You know, I'm a sucker for a good template. I'm a sucker for a good deck. So pre-production matters. It's the work before the work. Day of production, you got to absolutely crush it. You're essentially the quarterback in football, right? You got to show up and you got to lead and start and carry the positive tone throughout the entire shoot. And then post-production, you got to stick to your timelines and you got to delegate for the stuff that you're not as confident in. And then,
let's go.
Yeah. Partner is my favorite.
Okay.
I've built my business, Chris, on working with retainer clients.
Okay.
I got 3 kids under the age of 5. I live in Miami. It's expensive. So like when I took the leap to freelance, no one told me the huge ups and downs that comes with being a freelance photographer.
Yeah.
So the minute I landed my first retainer client, which is that Vita Ice brand that I touched on earlier, I'm like, how many of these do I need to cover overhead, to cover what I want to pay myself on a monthly basis? And then I need to predict my income month to month in order to grow in a healthy manner, because I don't want thinking about money to tie me down. And then also I want to tap into like putting money in my 401k account and stuff like that. So partner is really client experience. If you don't leave a good lasting impression on your client, how are you going to get repeat business? So client experience is where you're coming out of a production and what's that next steps? It's either getting them on retainer, or it's making sure you get a review, you get feedback, and you let them know that you'd love to work with them on a future shoot. But
Love it.
All these pillars kind of work together. I've seen people that are like, yo, I'm really good at talking about money, but then their portfolio sucks and their positioning's weak.
Yeah.
So that's where these 6 pillars, they all work together, and you need to have confidence in all 6 of them.
Yeah, they need to holistically work together. So you built this business, you started doing it. So obviously that's the core business, right? You started to identify the needs of your customer, of videographers and photographers. You started to speak directly to those needs and actually help them with real solutions. And in that process, you started to scale the freelance photographer business, not you as a freelance photographer, you as teaching people how to make a freelance photographer business. What was that journey like after that? Like, was it immediately like, man, people are buying this thing like crazy? Or were you like, no, dude, I got to go pitch the freelance photographer business? Like,
yeah. So having 3 retainer clients made it easier to pour into this other business that kind of came out of an idea that this buddy of mine, Cole, gave me. The freelance photographer course, when we launched it in 2018, 2019, I think like 30 people signed up, and it was all from social media. We weren't running ads. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. It was a $500 course, you know, lifetime access. Guys, this was before school. This was before all these guys were like throwing courses out there. And the pandemic hit. And that's when I was like, hold up, this might be good. This might be good. So we went from 30 to 1,000 people signing up for the freelance photographer course. And we would run these webinars that we'd run ads to these webinars. And the webinars were very strategically titled, How to Land Brands Without Leaving Your House.
Yes.
And I would speak on these webinars to thousands of people every single week. And we would just run it back every week, and we would get people to get in the course. And people were landing brands during the pandemic with the course material. And that's when I knew, like, okay, this is awesome. And something that seems pretty simple and easy to me on the business side is actually very new to others. And that's when I felt like the freelance photographer finally had legs.
Okay, let me ask you a more inner question. When you start to equip people to do the thing you do to make money, you're making more competition for yourself. How did you see that? Did you see it as like, well, the freelance photographer business is the future for me and less of actually freelancing, so I'm okay with it? Or did you have to wrestle with, I'm making the market more saturated with competition by teaching this? Like, what was did you have to navigate that at all?
That's funny, because that's kind of the skepticism on the other end of it, right? Like, why is this dude teaching this? I think it really comes from growing up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, strong, collaborative, creative community. And I'm not just saying that,
Yeah.
but like now that I've been able to coach people around the world, it's very gatekeepy. And like people aren't willing to share numbers. They're like, yo, here's my portfolio. I got a shoot coming up.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about money.
Yeah.
Minneapolis was different where it's like, it kind of gave me this insight on this whole value now that the freelance photographer holds, which is community over competition. I've been able to pull so many people from our coaching program and like workshops into my own projects.
Oh, wow.
And people inside of our program have been able to work together on big client campaigns. I think there's enough work to go around, and I think there's only competition if you create it.
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer in that, especially if you're a photographer, videographer on here.
Love it, man. I love it. And so I'm going to give you a couple rapid fire questions, and then I want to ask you about your process of getting acquired, because you had to get to some level of scale with the brand you built. So a couple rapid fire questions right off the cuff. You go for me. Give me your first answer. For any freelancer listening, what is the one thing they should start doing today to scale?
Start doing.
Okay.
Like I think of spec work. I probably did 15 different spec projects before I was working on a paid shoot. So don't practice on clients, practice with your peers.
Love it. Okay, next one. A mistake freelancers should stop making immediately.
Oh, hourly pricing.
Let's go.
It's going to sink you.
Yeah, it's going to sink you. I love it. Okay. The best investment you made in your business, the Freelance Photographer course, what's the best investment you made?
A book called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff.
Okay. What's that book?
It helps you literally communicate your value to decision makers. And it really helped people take me more serious, especially like baby boomers. Dude, if I show up to like a shoot or even a pitch in person or a discovery call, I'm wearing a crew neck, I'm wearing skinny jeans. Come on. So it's like, they could judge me immediately, but it's on me to communicate in a way so then they can see the value that I have to offer. And I've been promoting that book for years. I think it's really like the Bible of business when it comes to photography.
Cool. All right. What's one way to become a partner, not a vendor in a client relationship?
Lead with strategy. I tell photographers that you need to lead with that you're a content partner. So being more relational, not transactional.
Boom. Okay. What is the biggest lever in your business right now? What's the thing we're pulling this thing to grow?
In what business?
The Freelance Photographer course.
Ooh, the biggest lever is transparency and bringing in industry experts. We just had someone internally at Goop Beauty come in and share what they look for when hiring creatives. So we're pulling in brand decision makers and having them share with freelancers what they look for and how they tackle things like usage and licensing and pricing.
Fantastic. Okay. You scaled the company, the Freelance Photographer, it's acquired. Why was it acquired? Were you doing revenue numbers that were just like people want? What's that look like? I know that you said there's no gatekeeping in that community. Like, where did you get to that you started to realize your brand was worth something?
Yeah. So I never ever thought that the freelance photographer was going to be something that I would sell.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm the face of it. If you go to the freelancephotographer.com, you're learning from Paul.
Yeah.
But here's the deal is we've always put a lot of weight on the client experience that photographers get when they come to the program. I didn't want to just be like a pre-recorded course. That's why we went from a course to a program where you get to learn as a group, but also from Paul. But I will say numbers have been good. But also I think it's just our presence in this niche when it comes to teaching the business side. I think YouTube does a really good job on the creative side. Like you can go on there and you can learn how to color grade, how to light, all those things. But there still really isn't that much transparency around retainer numbers or landing a $10,000 to $30,000 client. So I would say definitely it was our presence in the business sector within photography. And that's where we started seeing a lot of people connecting with us that were connected and associated with brands like Adobe and Shutter, and just like Visca.
And then you were acquired how recent ago?
Yeah. So right now, what is it? November.
Yeah.
This past July, Visco acquired the Freelance Photographer.
Incredible.
And
congratulations.
Thank you. And it's cool because a year ago, I got reached out to by the CEO at Visco, Eric Whitman, incredibly talented, creative guy that also shares similar values when it comes to supporting the freelance photographer. And we grabbed coffee in Miami, and he's like, you know what? I think we're better together.
Wow.
Visco has been known for creative tools. You're focused on the business side, business tools. Like, what if we ended up working together in 2026? So that's really how this came about, was I could grow this on my own, Chris. Like,
yeah,
but
for sure.
If I can grow it with another business and a group of people that also are supporting freelance photographers, but in other ways, sign me up for that. So I find that even now, so we're working on tools that are really going to change the industry as a whole.
That's awesome, man. Wow. Congratulations on that. That's great.
Thank you.
Bro. Yeah. It's a testament to your hard work. Well, bro, thank you. You gave me a lot to think about, a lot to unpack, even for what we're trying to build and what we're trying to create. So I appreciate you taking the time today, man.